This is the first of a number of updates this year, including a major program that will plot the pathways for improved digital transformation from wherever you are on the journey. See this research as useful for two types of organizations. The first are organizations themselves undergoing this digital transformation process. You're going to get to see how others are handling ideas, issues, processes, and management, and this should help you sort of anchor yourselves in terms of where you are. The second group is the enormous swath of vendors selling digital transformation offerings, services, or even wrapping themselves in a digital message of some kind. The information here should act as a compass for where your true north is for these conversations. Organizations are full of intent. IDC states that about $1.7 trillion was invested on digital transformation last year. People, technologies, ideas, and processes. But we calculate that as much as 1.4 trillion of those dollars was vastly underutilized. The insights from this research with management in medium and the largest enterprises in the US tells us a great deal about where organizations' heads, hearts, and investments are as of March 2018. We wanted to ask 5 questions and really gauge where organizations, medium and large enterprises, management levels felt they were inside each of these. One, are organizations singularly focused on one vision or driver for digital transformation? Two, are organizations wrapping digitally, or are they going much deeper in the way they sort of think and they organize? Thirdly, do organizations know what's holding them back, the challenges? Therefore, can they sort of really react properly to what's going on around them? Fourthly, how is leadership doing in the minds of their management in terms of driving this all forward? And finally, what are the sort of likely mile markers for success at the end of this year and let's say potentially 3 years from now? And believing in what digital transformation can do for these organizations, certainly at a management level. It's great to see that at the most base level, people and their organizations are bought in. Just look at these top 4 answers. We all see the potential upsides and threats that we have to react to and believe that solving the digital transformation challenge is a way to handle these areas. So imagine you're sitting back in late December this year and reflecting on what worked for you with digital transformation investments this year. Respondents in these medium and large organizations told us that the hard economic upsides we see with the digitally transforming organizations are still going to be elusive for many of us, but changes in the psychology of how we work together and our processes are expected to be better. This is a great place to transition from. We need to be confident to handle a world evolving in front of us. However, key measures of digital economy success, like finding new opportunities, are barely above 10%. So that means that 9 in 10 organizations are not tapping into the real economic upsides of the transformation process, at least of now. We believe that the bridge here comes from finding the right pathways to digital transformation from where you are now. These medium and large organizations believe their organization will be in terms of its level of digital transformation. We sort of asked the same types of questions some 3 or 4 years ago in the initial research for our book, The Digital Helix, the Wall Street Journal bestseller. And actually in that research, clearly far too optimistically, 50% of executives told us they would be digitally transformed by now. In this research, middle management in these organizations, at best 1/3 of them are saying they will be mostly digitally transformed 3 years from now. Now, there are 4 really interesting conclusions from this point that I think affect everybody. One, as we discover more and more about this transformative journey, we really understand how complex and almost infinitely expandable it really can be, even in the last 4 years. This is not just a transition in technology, but a core transformation in how we think and design for success. Two, a journey this long needs a framework and a process, or the initial energy can be lost over such a long journey. We cannot get there with bits and pieces that are not connected to a greater value. Thirdly, if you're a brand selling yourself around the idea of digital transformation, there are huge opportunities to educate, support, and sell the idea to clients by having a sort of evolved message that can stand the test of time. This is going to be vital for you. And fourthly, for organizations going through this process, you need to celebrate the wins in this journey because they're going to be varied, and they're going to be small, and they're going to be large. Generally, middle management in these medium and large organizations loved what their executives were helping them do, and also how curious they felt their executives were about the ideas behind digital transformation. The challenge is no organization, though, is giving their leaders high scores on everything. We think this is because leaders tend to naturally go first where they are comfortable and put energy there. However, nearly 4 in 10 of these middle managers told us that their leaders do not have a clear strategic vision for digital transformation. This is pretty damning in some ways, because if you could just imagine the power of all this energy and investments with a killer strategy and a vision, it would be very easy to then get to a more positive set of outcomes for these organizations. Imagine what that sort of strategy, vision, and energy could actually unleash for you and your organization. On a long journey like this, a vision, a framework, and a process are going to be vital for success. Remember the last slide on where organizations expect to be in 3 years' time? We just can't get a competitive advantage unless we put a new way of thinking and acting in place. What you can see when you look to the results of the research to the right is there's a rainbow of definitions for what digital transformation could and does mean to this sort of management strata in medium and large organizations. This is great for companies wrapping themselves with digital transformation in a way of selling, as so many angles open up for that discussion. However, for companies going through this journey, this sort of rainbow of definitions can create a minefield of misunderstandings or even misdirected efforts and investments internally if everybody isn't really in the same place. Maybe what surprised us the most was that only 16% of these middle management in medium and large organizations saw digital transformation as their business model, as core to their business model. And I think Jack Welch has always said, if the outside world is evolving faster than your inside world, then the end is near. Many organizations are not seeing the tidal wave yet, and they really need to. Maybe the key here is executive leadership and the challenges around a clearer vision and strategy. Just because we all get how important it is, does not mean we're doing it in the right ways with the right ideas, processes, and practices. Management are very clearly focused on what's next, more customer centricity, and a real belief that better integration of data and insights will help everybody in the organization. This can be seen as a logical and necessary next step. This is a good reason why vendors, I think, are so focused on insights and customer centricity in their digital transformation messaging. It still feels odd, though, that 4 in 10 of us believe that the act of acquiring more technology will make us digitally transformed. This is part of the inevitable and continued wanderlust with the power of technology to help. But again, imagine if you could harness these technologies with revised thinking and processes like the Digital Helix, how much more successful you could be in this journey. Please spend a few minutes on this slide because the 11 variables we've looked at may well not be ordered in the way you may naturally have expected. It actually tells us something really interesting. Firstly, technology is not the challenge for us. We don't see IT as a challenge or a barrier in this process. In fact, the top 2 challenges around digital transformation are really ourselves: an unclear strategy and a lack of understanding about the internal challenges each of us face. Our leaders are clearly very invested. We clearly see the value, and we've moved past experiments. But the lack of processes and thinking, like those described in the Digital Helix, is really what is holding us back. We all know this to be true. We can stumble over ourselves without clarity. We can see that in the other data in terms of various definitions of digital transformation and also what organizations are going to focus on. Take the time with the team and get the framework from us on this process. Imagine if you could change how you succeeded by 30 to 50% by handling these internal challenges, understanding what those challenges were, and building a best-in-class vision and strategy. This may look a little complex as a slide. We asked managers to tell us how mature they think they are now for each of these 6 of the Digital Helix DNA components compared to 3 years ago. Look to the right and the orange column and see what a low percentage of organizations, or at least management in these organizations, see themselves as radically improved over the last 3 years. Those who see themselves as 70% or more improved in each of these 6 digital DNA markers since 2015. We know that these 6, in fact there's one more, key components are what drive remarkable economic returns for what we classify as digital transformation thrivers, the 1 in 6 who are thriving through this process. Now, if you look to the left, and you can see that north of 1/3 of the managers do not believe that their organizations are even 30% better on these vital digital DNA markers than they were 3 years ago. We can't, or we will not be able to get better and deliver on the full promise of digital transformation unless we focus on these processes and these proven digital DNA markers that we talk about in the digital. We felt that a parking meter was sort of a good appropriate sign for many organizations because the management in these organizations seem to have parked themselves in 1 or 2 places for digital transformation. And while that I think works well as a starting point, it won't necessarily help organizations get to that more mature and economically valuable state that yields incredible economic returns across the whole organization. So our recommendation is go back to that slide 11, have a look at those 6 digital DNA markers and start thinking about how you develop each of those in your own group, your own division, frankly across the organization to get closer to the sort of levels of economic return that we all expect to get eventually. IT has always been at the heart of technology design and deployments in medium and large organizations. What's great to see is that 2/3 of these managers in these organizations believe that IT has actually really adjusted to these new world imperatives extraordinarily well, with a lot of different types of roles you can see from the right around digital transformation consulting, driving digital agendas and running digital sort of service centers. It could be really exciting to be in IT if you're in one of those 2 and 3 organizations. Now, irrelevant of what type of organization you're in, the 2 in 3 or the 1 in 3 around IT, what is clear across the board is that nearly 4 in 10 of these future digital transformation projects are going to be led by IT. But what is also clear is that the skill sets that are going to be needed really will need to evolve to almost becoming like an MBA level type IT type leader. And this is much more about managing the DNA of the organization and not just the technologies in place. This could be an awesome opportunity for those in IT if they can take the right learning steps to be really powerful in this delivery, management, and architecture of digital transformation in these organizations. The great news is there is immense passion for digital transformation and a whole lot of investment around it. Right now, management isn't seeing epic economic results, maybe in more than 90% of environments, but they are hoping and seeing changes in confidence and processes. It's a start, but to get the economic returns that underlie the promise of digital transformation, we really need to put the right new digital models and heuristic thinking into place. Otherwise, we might get caught where many of us are right now, in well-meaning projects, but not with a truly digital core as the engine for our organization. There are a number of assets you can get from us for next steps. Just reach out to us and we might be able to get you and your teams access to the Wall Street Journal best-selling book on digital transformation, the Digital Helix. But certainly connect and look at the chapters we've got on mindset, on working methodologies, even to some extent on the example we've put up recently on LinkedIn about the Swiss watch industry and how disruptive digital transformation can really be even to the most established and protected industrial segments. There's no doubt this March 2018 research shows us that there is an endemic passion for digital transformation, but there is clearly no one pattern for success yet. Organizations focus on this as a transition or a specific area, and frankly, on 90% of occasions, the metrics we're looking for, certainly this year, seem a lot softer than we may have expected. Everybody is doing something or facilitating actions. The challenge is getting past doing transformative things to getting transformative results. Stay tuned for a really exciting next phase of the Digital Helix research as we dig into the specific pathways for successful digital transformation no matter where you are in the process. The cloud-based engine will let you self-audit, plan resources, and make much better investment decisions based on best-of-breed actions in your industrial segment. For example, we'll look at over 250 variables that drive or illustrate success, including details on 35 metrics that are dominant within the most successful organizations.